executive session. We have reconvened into open session, and I guess we're still waiting for the TV to do its thing. We're ready to go. Just a good moment. Ah, great. All right, well, it's a little after 7. It's Thursday, September 22nd, 2016, and this is the Board of Selectmen meeting. Second item on our agenda, we just exited out of executive session to discuss contract and personnel matters. Item number 2 is discussion and possible vote on town administrator's contract. Unfortunately, I have to say that we have continued yet again the executive session to a third meeting on the discussion of Mr. Lowe's contract renewal. So we will be having a similar session at the next meeting. So next up is a request for permission to hold the 2016 Positive Spin for ALS Bike Ride fundraiser on Sunday, September 25th, 2016.
Mr. Pericles.
Come on down.
How are you?
Good, how are you this
I
evening?
am. Hi. Nice to meet you.
Enjoy your
Talked
help
a
over
lot
the years, I know.
Say what's up.
via email, I should
You're Mike
say.
Park, right?
Right, nice to meet you. Tom Fran, nice to meet you.
So this is a ride that's been done before.
Yeah, we've been doing it since 2001,
Okay.
and the town's always been tremendously supportive, so we really appreciate that. You've allowed us to help a lot of people with ALS. Over the years, this is our 60th year doing it, so we've raised about 1.7 million over the years.
Wow.
You guys have, you and your predecessors have been a big help to us doing that.
Super.
Thank you very much.
Sure. And I have a note here on our stuff that Chief Nelson, you have approved all this good stuff, so then no wishes that. You gentlemen have any questions?
I don't.
Okay.
No.
Anything from the audience? Okay, then I'll take a motion to allow this event to happen.
Great.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the Positive Spin for ALS Bike Ride fundraiser on Sunday, September 25th.
Second. Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye?
Aye.
Great. Well, good luck.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you for
I
coming.
appreciate it. No, that's okay. Thank
Next
you
up on
again.
our agenda is...
Shake hands.
Oh,
No.
sure.
Sorry,
Why
thank
not?
you,
Why
that's
not?
okay.
Sure.
Thank you for your help.
Sure.
Okay. And thank you for all your help over the years.
Yes,
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next up on our agenda is a request for permission to hold the Christmas tree and menorah lighting celebration and a request for approval for a permanent sign at the town common. Bob Roman, come on down.
Okay, first of all, I am not Bangalore.
They have been corrected.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Okay, two things on the agenda. First is a permanent sign. We have lots of signs, we now want one sign, and make that a permanent sign.
That looks good. I saw the color picture, looks great.
Yep. And we looked at a lot of them, and Franklin looked like,
Yeah.
absolutely, the one, and talked to them about
Looks
how
nice.
they ran it, everybody's happy with it.
Yeah, looks good.
And a lot of it is the opening and the bottom where you can post things.
Mm-hmm.
Rather than having multiple signs. So, we've got everything there, it's gonna be in the corner.
Mm-hmm.
We will leave the paved concrete, or paved asphalt pad that we put in to put the town lighted sign. And we are strategically locating the other sign back so that we can get that sign in
Mm-hmm.
from the road up on the ADA access. So that's that. We request that you approve that. We'll go ahead and put that up
Mm-hmm.
as soon as we can get it. The second item is the Christmas tree and menorah lighting, essentially the same as last year, it'll be December 10th, 6 to 7:30. I expect we'll have essentially the same crowd.
Mm-hmm.
We hopefully will not have mud this time, since we are growing weeds, and I think we'll grow grass pretty soon.
Okay.
We're gonna have a DJ, we're gonna have our Secret Santa at the top of the pavilion, which was a great hit last year. We'll have a bonfire coordinated with the chief,
Mm-hmm.
police detail coordinated, and then we're gonna coordinate, as we did before, with the churches for parking and the library for
Mhm.
parking. So, wanna make sure that we have approval of that.
So Sounds good. Sounds good. I'm sure you'll be working with the chief over there.
Oh, yeah, both chiefs.
Both chiefs. Sorry, both chiefs. Okay, that sounds good. I'm great with both. I'm sure, I mean, you'll probably still need to do a sign permit and all that good
Yeah.
stuff, so,
Yeah.
yeah, so. Yeah, so subject to that, but I'm sure, Mike will have no issue with that.
Yep. Good, I'll go ahead and do that then.
Okay.
I have no question.
No questions?
I'll take a motion to recommend approval for both.
I'll move that.
Second?
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you, Bob.
Fantastic job you're doing.
It's
Yeah.
coming.
Yeah, it is, looks great.
A lot of people working on it, and a lot of people donating too. Keep up the donations.
Next up on the agenda is a recommendation and vote on the open sergeant position. Chief Nelson. Chief, how are you tonight?
I'm doing well. Hope everybody's doing well.
Okay.
Good evening.
Just so to set the stage, last meeting, I believe it was, you came in and we approved your recommendation for Sergeant Hamburger to become Lieutenant Hamburger, and that the lieutenant's position was backfilled at that meeting. And at that meeting, you did discuss with us at the end that you would be coming back tonight, since we did, or you did promote a sergeant to the position of lieutenant. There is an open position that approved, and we've had two sergeants for quite some time, so now we have an empty slot, and you're coming in now to ask for, to backfill, as you did the lieutenant's position with a second sergeant.
Yes, a patrolman into a sergeant's
Correct.
position.
Yep.
Yes, sir. Yep, that is correct.
Okay.
So that's where we're at. Through the promotional process, the testing, Officer Kuchar was the high scorer of all the events that were put on, from a written exam, oral board, written assignment, and it was all scored by Wayne Sampson from his company, Public Consultants. And he supplied us the scores, I forwarded it, and obviously we're recommending Jonathan
Right.
for the sergeant position.
And this is a standard process and practice that we have pretty much always followed.
Yes, it's
Okay.
the standard process.
I'm fine with what you've done. Do you gentlemen have any particular questions?
Yeah, so you've been working very, since you were appointed, working very, kind of quickly to fill your vacancy, your previous position as lieutenant. And kind of, it's been going pretty quickly, and for me, I'd like to take a pause and kind of consider, I think you've done a great job looking at overtime, since that was raised, and looking at training as a way to reduce costs. And I just think this might be a good juncture to kind of discuss and kind of find a way forward in reducing costs in personnel and equipment. And so I guess, before going ahead with this and also hiring a new patrolman, I'd like you and Don to get together and kind of look at, you did a great job with the overtime, but looking at personnel and scheduling and equipment to see, how that can be, how you could kind of adjust that to save money also in those two areas.
Pretty much what I got out of that was about 3 different points. To save money, I'd have to reduce the number of people on the street. And I don't think that's where we've been trying to go. We always want 2 people on the street. Each shift, I should say. So what you've just proposed is cutting staff. That's going to cut the number of people that are out on the road. So I would object to that first, because I don't want to go backwards and lose people off the street, like putting one person on the midnight shift. It's just not a safe practice to put one person on. Second, I don't think I've been going rapidly fast because this process for the sergeant started almost a little over a year ago that this process started. Because we had the third sergeant planned, budgeted, gone through advisory, previous selectman, Dawn, that we were going to try to get our third sergeant position up and running so that we would have pretty much supervision around the clock. And this was a result because in past talks, it was the OIC pay that the officers get. They get an extra, I think it's $1.50. So to promote a sergeant, it was gonna be another $1.30 at the time. So it just made sense, pay somebody more money that has more responsibility when they're out there. And having frontline supervisors is what you're gearing up for, so that they do the right thing, they watch their employees, they motivate their employees, and they monitor them. So, again, I don't think we've been going too fast, just because those names have been in the...
Chief, I'm sorry to interrupt, but just to be clear, we're not talking about the third sergeant position, we're talking about the second sergeant.
Yes, but those people are ready to go into any position. So it's, if it was first, second, or third, it's still the same process they've gone through to become a sergeant. So it's just a testing process, interviews, and then choose the right person.
But to be clear, we're not voting, this would not be this is not I'm sorry.
Yep.
Stumble.
Yep.
A third sergeant has not been approved by the Board of Selectmen.
No, this is not, this is to backfill the empty slot that's now exists because Sergeant Hamburger is now lieutenant.
Yes, and the process had begun back when Vincent Alfano was chief, to put that third sergeant, at least recommend somebody to you, and then, you know, obviously.
But we're not discussing, all
We're
we're
not doing that,
all we're
but-
doing is backfilling the existing position.
Yes,
That's all.
but as I'm explaining, that process started for the third sergeant, but it can be applied to any of the one or two or three, whoever, whichever position's open. It's a patrolman to a sergeant, so it's the testing process to become a sergeant. It's like civil service. If you need a patrolman, you go and you pick 4 people and you look at the list and you do your investigation there. So he's ready to go to be the next sergeant, whether it's 1, 2, or 3. So his name came to the table today.
One of the things that I've heard is that, you know, sometimes during the day, there's, you're on schedule, so there's a police chief, there's a lieutenant, there's a sergeant, and then there are 2 patrolmen.
Oh, no. There's no sergeant. It's the chief, lieutenant, and 2 patrolmen. The patrolmen are out there doing the job around the town, driving around, doing what they're supposed to do, and we're in the station doing the administrative work.
Right, so maybe it's looking at that schedule more creatively. Do you and your lieutenant always need to be there at the same time?
In a simple answer, yes, we do. That's how we get things done. If he's off doing the midnight shift, he's useless to me, because he's not helping me get the things that we need to do during the day shift. That's when the vendors come in, that's when things get fixed. A lot goes on during the day shift that we have to do.
But I think, gentlemen, this is not a discussion, this agenda item is not an agenda item to talk about changing anything the way that the police department does, or looking for creative ways to move people around. This is specifically to discuss a open sergeant slot that was vacated because one of the 2 sergeants that we currently have, and have had for a long time in the department, was promoted to lieutenant, and we're down to 1 sergeant, and we need to backfill that position. That's what this discussion is about, not having a discussion about creative ways to jiggle things around. That's not the purpose of the discussion. The purpose of the discussion is to talk about promoting a patrolman to sergeant.
So, Don, there was the other issue, and I just wondered how we're gonna handle that.
Well, I laid the process out that would need to be followed if that's something that the board wanted to do. So I've got the roadmap there. It's a matter of if that's what would require a board vote.
I think I need to speak up to be fair to Officer Kuchar and to you, Chief. I'm not gonna vote for Officer Kuchar or a sergeant. Shortly after I was elected, I had, within a relatively short period of time, 2 bad experiences with him. And they made me uncomfortable, so I just thought I should say that I'm gonna be voting no. So there's 2 other people here, they may vote yes.
Well, I will beg to differ. Just your brief encounters is not how Officer Kuchar operates. He's competent to do the job, he's skilled, he's experienced. I'm sorry you felt that way, but...
I am too. I did not look for it. I didn't look for those interactions. But they made me very uncomfortable, and that my answer's fine on that.
I won't argue with you then if there's no debating it.
I mean, so I raised my issues, so, I wouldn't be supporting it at this moment. I do want that work to be done in terms of looking at scheduling and personnel.
I'm sorry, Jonathan, you can't decide, just the conversation we had last week. If the boards take such a vote, then that perhaps can happen. But again, you as an individual cannot direct any town department head to do anything. Let's make that clear. I thought we discussed that last week.
We're here at the Board of Selectmen, I'm here with you. I'm sharing my opinions, and that's very different from what you addressed last week.
No, you addressed that this is what you want. So it's not what you want, it's what the board of
We each
select.
express our opinion and then we vote. That's the process. We're all equals here. I mean, it's just,
Oh, absolutely.
Right.
But until we take a vote, it's.
Right, so usually there's a discussion, each person says what their opinion is, and there's a vote. So, I'd like to make a motion not to promote not to promote Mr. Kuchar to sergeant at this time.
And I would second that.
Well, you haven't really given a good reason why, other than, you want to see, the department budget go down to 0 and have no patrolling, no officers, and no nothing. I think that would make you probably very happy. That's not necessarily good practice, considering, how many conversations have you had with the chief to discuss the workings? I think you've had one to date, and I'm not sure that that's really sufficient for you to get any understanding. But I believe that I don't believe that your issues are justified, because I'm well aware of the situations that took place. And I think all you're doing is just trying to cut the legs off of the police department. And I think that as a selectman, looking at what is the best for the town, this is really a travesty, in my opinion, both of you. And I'm almost embarrassed to be associated with you two. But there's a motion, I have no intention of seconding it.
It's been seconded, Mr. Chairman.
Well, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Chief, I'm very sorry. Jonathan, I'm very sorry. All right, get up. Next up is a discussion of the status of the Friends of Persons Park efforts. Martha Remington, please come up. Good evening, Martha. How are you?
Good evening, Jonathan.
Well,
Good to see you.
Thank you. It's good to be here. It's been a while since I was here. And quite frankly, when I asked Linda for to please schedule me on the Selectmen's agenda. I didn't really say this would be a status for Friends of Persons Park, but I can tell you it's been a busy year since we met before July 27th last year. Friends of Persons Park is a corporation. It has an EIN. It has 501c3 status. And it has been registered with the Attorney General for the common law. So we're ready to, pardon me, write some grants and get some things done. The reason that I'm here tonight is to speak about the condition of the chimney.
Well, actually, Martha, I think we need to take a step back because we've had a number of meetings with you over the years, and the last big meeting we had with you was subsequent to a visit, site visit.
Site visit on the 27th of July.
And we had a gentleman come to sort of give an appraisal or do an investigation and provide an estimate in terms of what it would cost to upgrade. And I think at the time, the Board of Selectmen were pretty clear in that, you yourself at the meeting had said that, the efforts to try to do something with the building had gone on since 2006, and we're now in 2016. So it's about a decade or so.
Well,
Yep.
excuse me, Mr. Chairman, I take issue with that. 2 or 3 of us who wanted to do pro bono work over there since perhaps that time were not the Friends of Persons Park, which was conceived actually only about a year before.
That's not the issue, Martha. The issue is that when we discussed this last time, you were trying to form your.
Mr. Chairman, can I just ask what we're discussing? What are we here for?
We're here for, Martha had come in to want to get requests to do some work on Persons Park. However.
The cottage, excuse me.
The cottage,
at
the
Persons
cottage.
Park.
The discussion we had last time that we were here was a discussion of the fact that for a decade or so, no one really stepped up and said that they would want to use the facility for any great purpose. And there was talk about, wanting to rehabilitate. Now, you haven't been over there, or I don't know if you have.
I have been over there.
Yeah, but we were inside, we did inspection, the place is falling apart. It's gonna require probably, in order to make the facility usable, probably well in excess of 6 figures in order to do that. And the discussion last time is that, a fundraising effort needed to be undertaken to come up with that sufficient level of funding to rehabilitate that, and to find a group that was willing to, put a stake in the ground and said they would use it, and be able to have some mechanism for ongoing funds for maintenance. Because the one thing the Board of Selectmen at the time definitely said is that we did not want to have, $1,000 put in here, and $3,000 put in here, and $5,000 put up in there, while the structure continued to deteriorate. Because then an argument could be made, well, over the last 6 or 7 or 9 years, we put $9,000, $10,000, or $12,000 into it. We need to continue to invest money. So at that time, it was, look, this is either we're going to get the funds to fix it up sufficiently for use and to bring it up to code, and to have a group that's willing to raise their hand, or groups that make a long-term commitment to use the facility, and have some mechanism that the facility could be maintained by those groups and not necessarily involve taxpayer money.
So can I just hear from Martha? What is it that you're asking us? What are you asking?
On August 3rd, it was discovered that people were scaling the chimney. They scaled the chimney at least 2 times. Some rocks fell off the chimney, and they actually
climbed up the chimney?
Yeah, like you find in the mall, you climb the mountain.
I see. On the house there?
On the cottage, on the east side where the chimney is. And they broke open one of the shutters, which had a board on it. And a couple of weeks after that, the second or how many ever climbs there were, this was opened up. And so DPW had to go over and secure the shutter.
Right.
So, having obtained an estimate to fix the chimney some years ago, the corporation decided we needed to ask your permission to do the work. Remember, our intention is not to have any town monies utilized for the cottage except your insurance, which you have, because it is there. And DPW does all the groundwork, and they probably put the last roof on. So we are prepared to pay the bills to save the historic building and to try and find the use for it, which is looking more and more like space for meetings, space for groups to get together in town. So be that as it may, I came here tonight specifically to ask if the town would, through perhaps an understanding of agreement, allow us to have that work done, for which we have the estimate, we have the insured stonemason to do the work, and it could be done before the winter sets in. Even if the place burned to the ground, the chimney and the fireplace would remain. If something was ever built there, the chimney and fireplace could anchor a new pavilion or whatever Parks and Rec wants to do with it after such time as it is not used anymore.
So you're a 501c3, you're a nonprofit corporation, and you were formed to assist Persons Park, basically.
We were formed to effectively take it off your hands monetarily as far as the
But you're-
work that has to be done. And he's right, it's probably going to be close to 6 figures.
6 figures?
$100,000 more or
For the whole
less.
building.
To rehab the
For the
building up
whole-
to code.
Right, no, but tonight, all right.
Not for the chimney work.
Okay, okay, but, so please, yeah, I'm just trying to understand. So tonight, are you just here about the chimney?
Yes.
Okay.
That's all I'm here about, is to see if we can have the professional stonemason fix the chimney, and then we don't have to worry about it.
And then Friends of Person Park is gonna pay for it.
Yes, exactly.
So
The
you're
whole
just
thing.
looking for our permission
To allow us to
To-
fix the chimney so that it becomes sound, because they could have broken their necks climbing the chimney. But
So-
that's not our, I don't know.
Can I ask you a question? Sure. So who, is it DPW that would be responsible for that physical building right now, or?
Well, there's no money appropriated for the building right now, so
No, but under whose aegis does?
it
the-
falls under the DPW.
Okay, and what, have you talked to the DPW at all? Just,
About being here this evening?
no, just about the maintenance of the building.
Well, no, but Harold's always very good. When he found out the shutter was undone, he had someone over there within hours to fix it and secure it and make sure that the other one was also fixed.
Does he have an objection to the Friends of Persons Park?
I do not believe so, no,
Okay,
unless it has developed recently.
No, I don't believe he does.
No.
so I'm,
Do you have an estimate to show us? Or is that-
Yes, I believe I do. If I don't,
It's not critical, it's just,
it's between $3,000 and $4,000. We got 3 estimates, excuse me. These were obtained about 3 years ago, and this one was the most expensive, but it's Lois Alex's son-in-law. He's one of the finest stonemason masons in the state. And I also wanted to just bring in, these are pictures of what the place looked like in '98. This was office space for Conservation Trust, and later on for Parks and Rec. And although deterioration has happened, when the cars drove down the hill to get to the beach, that compacted the road, and that West Side Foundation is imploding. It's going.
Oh, I know.
That has to be the first thing we thought that would have to be done, but the chimney
So-
issue came up.
is it Friends of Person Park, Inc.? Is that the?
That's correct. Friends of Persons Park, no apostrophe, Incorporated.
And who are the officers?
We have 7 on the board of directors. Kenyon Kiley is now the president. Ron Abalco is the vice president. William Arvidsson from Chelmsford is the clerk. I am currently the treasurer. And then we have Timothy Feeler, who's president of the Historical Society. Peter Kaufman, who lives on Burnham Road. He's a member of the Cultural Council. And I've probably forgotten one. There are 7 of them.
That's okay. So when were you formed?
And, pardon me, Eleanor Sargent is our honorary director, whose family used it many times before the persons would come up. They only came up in August. Incorporation was approved on 27th of July. On February 8th, the 501c3 came through, and then the Attorney General received our charity registration in April.
April of this year?
Yes.
I don't have any problems with this.
I don't either.
We'd be happy to give you a tour,
Yeah,
if we're permitted.
And by doing the chimney, this,
I did at Martha's urging, I've probably driven by that place, God, so many times, didn't even know it was there, it's spectacular.
It is.
And there's swimming there too, right? Isn't there?
well, that's under Park and Rec. Parks and
Okay.
Rec maintains, DPW does the maintenance and the road, Parks and Rec does the beach. Excuse me, our interest is only the buildings. And by the way, I wanted to mention, Preservation Massachusetts has a program called Most Endangered Historic Resources. We submitted an application on the, excuse me, 15th of August. And it simply means that we would be on a list, if we got on the list, or were selected to be on the list, which would prove to grant makers that we're applying to that this is an important, it would be a feather in our cap to perhaps get some preferential treatment for grants. So it'd be a real honor. They only have that like once a year. So that also happened. Oh, I'm sorry, I mentioned Ann Forrest, a preservation consultant, is our other director. So this by no means means that if the chimney's done, it's gonna fly. But I think it's only fair to the building until we find out about the, the fundraising and everything, and the use, which you're very strong about making sure there are people to use the building. It's not gonna mean that everything else is gonna go, but I think that we owe it to the chimney at least to be sound, for safety reasons, and it'll be one thing that's out of the way. Thank you.
Martha and I have been involved in that building for years. We knew the person who gave it to the town. And I think it's criminal that we were told we could no longer help maintain the building and take care of it. And that's why it's deteriorated to the point that it has. It's disgraceful.
Well, I think to some extent, you're correct. Private citizens, there's an insurance liability issue. And I do want to point out that I've been involved in this situation now for many, many years. And I understand a lot of that you want to try to preserve that, and I give you great credit. But unfortunately, and no disrespect to you, but we have had meeting after meeting, year after year, which essentially has come up basically with the same discussion, that you're looking for grants, you're looking to preserve, you're looking to find a resident, and this has gone on for years and years. My concern is that we're going to be nickel and diming the building, and we're going to get to a point where then you're going to say, well, we've now invested, you're talking $3,000 or $4,000, and then something else will go along, we're going to need to invest another few thousand, and now we'll be $10,000 to $12,000 into it. And you're not going to get to the point where you're going to have sufficient funds to raise the six-figure income, those 6 figures, to fix the building and bring it up to code. And we've been talking for years about finding a group that will utilize the building, and that hasn't happened yet. I know you may be having difficulty. I'm just concerned that people are going to be contributing money, and you're going to be pouring into a building where that money eventually will come to naught. That at some point, the building will get to a certain point where it doesn't matter what you do with it, it's going to have to be taken down. And I think we're getting pretty close to that point now. It was in pretty sad shape last year, the year before, the year before. So my only concern is that we're going to keep throwing little bits of money at it, when perhaps you could have used that money from an historical perspective somewhere else in town. That's my only concern. And I really wish that we didn't have the same conversation conversation every year. Because I mean, there were commitments made 4, 5, 6 years ago while I was still on the board when we would visit Persons Park and we were going to do this, that, and the other, and it just doesn't seem to have happened. And I'm sure there may be certainly legitimate obstacles. I just don't want to see individuals contributing money to a cause where eventually that money's just going to go, you know, in the dumpster, literally. That's only my concern. But I do respect and appreciate the fact that you want to try to preserve the building while you try to do that. But the thing is, at some point, you either have to get there or we don't. That's all I can say.
That's fine, and I appreciate your words. I just want to point out that in Stowe, there's a school called the West School. It's opened once a year for tours. It used to be open more than that. They have people that can go into it. It is sound enough to have more people come to it more often. I think it's only recently, I know Connie Schwarzkopf used to be there most of the summer and allow people to be in there. Even if this building was not utilized by the Boy Scouts or whomever, Historical Commission, it deserves to be there as the last cottage camp on a pond in Bolton until Parks and Rec or the town decides they want to put money into it to make a pavilion or whatever Parks and Rec want. And in all fairness, over the 20 years, not 20, about 16 years, Parks and Rec returned almost $50,000 to the town that they could have used to keep the maintenance up on this building. You have to remember, the electrical service was severed. So nobody could use it. There is an issue because it is so private. But I know when you say we, remember, it's gonna be Friends of Person Park, us. They're going to have to do the grunt work and raise this money.
That's
And it took me
absolutely
a
right.
while, it took me a while to figure out, oh, this has to be a 501c3. And I'm sorry I was so slow.
I'm not saying that you're slow, I'm just pointing out that we've had the discussion for many years. I'm just concerned that, you know, putting money into something that eventually is, you're not gonna get there, that's all. So, we're done, do you gentlemen wanna make a motion?
I'll make a motion to allow Friends of Persons Park, Inc. to make repairs to the chimney. I would add the motion that the contractor be licensed and insured, and that the town be named as an additional insured on, and provide a certificate of insurance to that effect.
Second?
I'm not well, we'll have to talk with Don, I'm not sure that that's gonna be sufficient.
And I do want to point out, excuse me, one other thing. We all agreed to sign waivers that said we worked at this place on at our own risk, and that was not enough for the town.
Exactly, and I believe, Don, we had that discussion in the past, but that's a separate discussion. All right, all those in favor, signify by saying aye.
I think we need to look at this.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm going to abstain on this because I have my previous positions on that, so I'm just going to abstain on this one. Thank you, Martha.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Martha.
Mr. Administrator, town, your report, please.
Let's see, first, update on Minuteman, for anyone who didn't see the election results. The Minuteman building project passed on the district-wide ballot by approximately a margin of 70% in favor and 30% opposed, with the only town with a majority in opposition was being Belmont. And that being said, the building committee is back in business again, and I will be attending the building committee meeting Monday night at Minuteman. Next, the update on meeting with the Department of Transportation. I believe I've got the an approved date now, working with DOT, the DOT representative Barry Lorian. I'll be getting an email out tomorrow. I've requested representation from Lancaster and Stowe. There'll be a representative of the Board of Selectmen from Stowe coming. I believe one of the Lancaster Selectmen will be coming. I don't know that they voted who that will be yet. I will be reaching out to Mary, the Public Way Safety Committee. Also, Harold will be there. One of our selectmen will be here at the last meeting. Sounded as though, I think Tom, you said since you've met with Barry before, maybe Jonathan would attend this time. I don't know, but you guys didn't take a vote, but that's with the way I think you were leading. But it would be helpful if the board sorted that out tonight. Obviously, I'll be there, and I'll be extending the invitation to both Bolton School Committee reps, Lorraine Roscoe and Neil Darcy. And a suggestion was made this week, which I think is a good one, that there be representation from the Route 117 Study Committee as well. Jonathan made that recommendation. I hadn't thought about that before, but my suggestion would be that we include one person from the 117 Study Committee, so I can include the chair on email and let them sort that out. But I'll include Bert, I guess it was, the chair on the distribution when I get the email out. But we are looking at, and the timing I think works out well. We'll be looking at Tuesday, October 4th, which will be the day before Tri-Town, so we can report out at Tri-Town. And then again, if necessary, at the Selectmen's meeting on the 6th, so we can get all that done this week. That week.
I missed this. You said it's going to be at the high school.
Yes, it will be at the high school. We're just working at a conference room. So I thought we'd start outside, observe everything, and then go in and have the working session after that.
And if you want to go, that's fine. If he doesn't want, I'd be glad to attend the second time, but I just will.
I'd like to go.
Yeah.
Okay. So we'll plan on that.
Donnie, the time was 3, wasn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
So the next update on Camp Virginia, seems like there's always an update after we get a report. As you know, Ashley was in at the last meeting, and then I had the follow-up conversation with her that we said we would have, and I encouraged her to contact the Girl Scouts to make sure that the timeline that was discussed at last meeting was acceptable to the Girl Scouts, and it is not. The Girl Scouts would like to see this issue resolved by the town one way or another by the end of this calendar year, rather than the fiscal year. And I explained that the only way that that could be done was a special town meeting. So I think at the next meeting, at our next meeting, there'll need to be a discussion about whether or not there needs to be a special town meeting. There may well need to be a special town meeting anyway, because of the work that needs to be done over at Emerson relative to the boiler, relative to the water filtration plant, what responsibility the town may have towards contributing towards the expense for those things. And they're big dollar ticket items. So we would need to do an appropriation at a special town meeting anyway. So that being said, and I'm already planning on inviting, well, I've already made the request that the superintendent come back at the next selectmen's meeting to give an update. And, well, it would be a joint update because as you know, I've been working with her weekly on this. The district is gathering quotes right now for the boiler, and we'll have those figures. We should have those figures, or at least a very close estimate, for October 6th. And Harold is, I've asked Harold to take the lead on managing the water filtration plant side. So Harold's taking the lead on that, and we'll do everything we can to have figures as tight as we can get for October 6th. So that'll give the board a feel for timing that could be required for that. Once the discussion is had between the board and the superintendent about what might be paid for by whom. So the timing could be right.
Do you mind saying?
Oh, no.
So the terms of the town's purchase of the, let's say it gets on the warrant for the town meeting. In the summer, the terms roughly were, we thought,
$800,000, $400,000 would be paid for by fundraising or grants.
Well, the grant would be 400,000.
Grant would be 400,000, and the other 400,000 would have had to be paid by the town,
The
right?
town were offset by some grants, but we would have to assume 400,000.
Assume that it's a possibility that we'd be on the hook for 400,000.
Correct.
Now, since then, the price has gone from 800,000 to something higher, correct?
Well, to be fair to the Girl Scouts, it was Ashley's belief that the Girl Scouts would be okay with 800,000. And when she went back and tested that with the Girl Scouts, they said, no, we're firm on 975. So, and it's still 975, they're still firm on 975. But it would still be a grant, if we had a special town meeting, we would have to, I believe, we would have to write the article, assuming the town was gonna have to appropriate the entire 975. Because we would have to make a I believe we would have to make an appropriation which assumes we don't get the grant and there's no fundraising. Fundraising is not successful, we'd have to be extremely conservative. That way, we could write the article as not to exceed $975,000, and if we got the grant and there was some fundraising, then the town's appropriation would be less. But we won't be able to inform the town of an exact number because of what the timing would need to be.
And what does her feel about what the grants and fundraising would amount to? Not hold, she couldn't be held to it, I understand, but.
Well, she's confident that if we're successful in the grant, it would be 400,000. So that would bring it down to 575, and it's unclear to me, she really hasn't committed, you can't commit to a fundraising level, but she hasn't given, a really strong estimate yet as to what she thinks the fundraising could be. I think that would be an appropriate discussion to have her back for the next selectmen's meeting.
So all else being equal, assuming the grants, they may not be, we would have to sign a P&S where no matter what, we're on the hook for 975. But she believes the 400,000 that was kind of up in the air in the summer would still be there, but the town's out of pocket would go from 400,000 to 575.
Yes, that's a fair way to put it.
I just had a question for Kendra. At the last meeting, you mentioned a subcommittee, and I just wondered what a subcommittee could do to kind of help in this process.
Well, one of the things that I think it could do is to kind of figure out, along the lines of what Martha was talking about earlier, how the land would be used, to basically to come up with more information about the land and the way that it might be used to inform the electorate, so that the subcommittee would essentially help all of you to end up with being able to sell it to the town, to explain to them what it was that it could be done, the ways in which the use of the property could be divided amongst different groups and what that might mean and things of that sort. Because it would seem to me that it would be, that if you're going to go before the town to ask for that amount of money, that to be able to present a plan of some sort, even if it's, the criticism of Martha earlier was that there was no plan for Persons Park. So in this case, I would think a committee could come up with a plan, and it wouldn't be development plans or, things you could look at necessarily, but I think a group, if it spent a little time, could actually come up with some sort of plan for how that plan might be used, the kinds of groups that would use it, whether there were opportunities to raise funds with it. For example, if the Conservation Trust held their camp there, then there's revenue involved in that. They could potentially be paying them. There's just lots of things like that when you have a potential multiple use of each sort of property there. That if you had a few people get together who had various interests or who represented various interests in town, that I would think that could help you out. My observation, no offense to Ashley or anybody else, is that she's basically done everything up to this point solo. And if she had had some help, if there had been a core of 2 or 3 people in the town interested in doing it and kind of running along with some of this, then many of these questions that, like, when will they want to do it and things of that sort, could have gotten answered. It might even be possible if you had a committee, that committee could sit down with the Girl Scouts as a group. And part of what that would do is show that the town is in fact interested. And it might be through the course of discussion that they could come up with a strategy that would maybe mean that the Girl Scouts would say, well, okay, you guys are serious. I can see the scenario you're going to follow and the time frame that you would follow to do it. And so, yeah, we're willing, if you'll give us a little bit of earnest money on the side and sign a P&S, we're willing to wait until your fiscal year because we understand the way you work. You know, I don't know whether they would do that, but it seems to me that to have a group willing to do that might get you closer. That's what I have in mind.
And you think there's a group of people who's interested in dedicating themselves to that?
I think we'd have to ask. I mean, I don't think we've officially asked, but I think we could put together a few people, yes.
But I think the one thing that people really need to understand is the first time around, and correct me if I'm wrong, Don, is that the way things were structured, the town had an out if the grant wasn't achieved. This time, we're gonna be committed regardless of whatever happens. There's no turning back. So we could be on the hook for all of it, 975 grand. So if the grant doesn't come through, we're still on the hook to buy the property because Sudbury Valley Trust needs to front the money. So this time around, once the train leaves the station, we're committed.
Agreed, and that's part of the pitch that would have to be made to a town meeting, and the voters may well decide, since it would probably require a 2/3 vote to do that, that they don't want to do it. And if they don't want to do it, then we're not on the hook for anything.
Yep.
But it would seem to me that nothing ventured, nothing gained, and
True.
I think we could put together a little group to do that.
We would really have to jumpstart again the open space plan effort,
Yep.
which we've been assuming we had until, the collective, we had until May, basically, to get down to when the article will be coming out at town meeting. We're talking about a special town meeting. Realistically, we're talking probably mid-November, which is not a lot of time. Because once we get to Thanksgiving, between Thanksgiving and Christmas, trying to get people to a town meeting is really difficult. It's not impossible, but it's an uphill struggle. So, and then and the Girl Scouts have said that their deadline is the end of the calendar year. So going into the January town meeting really isn't an option to meet that. So, and then just another point that I would like to make, there'll be some incidental costs beyond the 975. There's an appraisal, there's closing fees and all that type of thing. So it's probably right around $1 million when all is said and done. And I think to do justice at town meeting, we're not going to just have to do all of that expense side, but we're going to have somebody. We're going to have to determine somehow what the ongoing carrying costs will be of that property, so we know what we're going to need to be budgeting for the FY18 budget plan.
There's a lot of buildings there and things.
Well, and this is part of what I'm suggesting that a group could help you with, to help put that together. And I mean, I don't know exactly where the open space plan fits in, but it would seem to me that you could still do the May part of the open space plan, going for the grant then, and still work in the other direction with the town and the Girl Scouts to meet their date.
You may be right, but if I try to put myself in the shoes of a voter, and if I were a voter, I would want to know what's the likelihood of getting the grant, and the grant rises and falls on the open space plan. And if the open space plan isn't done by May, that's a $400,000 delta. And I think people will at least want to know what the likelihood, is it a strong likelihood? You know, I don't know how people feel about likelihoods, but if I were a voter, and if I knew the town meeting was November 18th and I knew on November 17th the open space plan was done, I'd be a lot more inclined to vote for it.
And that would mean borrowing as well.
It would mean borrowing, yes.
Would probably even mean a ballot election for the debt exclusion on it, which is okay.
But it would be, I think it's a beautiful property, but I think that would be cannibalizing some of the debt that's rolling off shortly. I mean, it would be replacing the debt that's rolling
Yeah.
off
That's
would
true.
take that place.
It's something the town meeting would really have to decide, how it wants to
But it's a
spend
once
its
in a
money.
lifetime
Exactly.
thing for the town.
See, it seems to me the town meeting, again, speaking for what voters are looking for, any proposal of that sort needs a champion. And always in the past, whenever we have passed anything, there has been somebody in the town government, a committee or whatever, who has been a champion, who has gotten up and made the presentation to explain what it was that it would be, whether it was the library or the public safety building or the wineries APR or the Nishway APR. Somebody got up and spoke on it. That's what you need to have, and to have somebody from Sudbury Valley be that champion isn't going to do it with the voters. That somebody from the town needs to do it. And so, anyway.
All right. Well,
So I will schedule that for the next
okay.
meeting. And finally, review and approve the application for the STRAT grant for the Route 110 and 117 intersection. This effort came as a result of a meeting that we had not long after the annual town meeting in the spring. It incorporates direction that was given by the Board of Selectmen as far as wanting to be able to pursue a grant opportunity to get the work done to improve the intersection without having to spend a lot of tax dollars on this. It supports, I believe, the Public Way Safety Committee vision as well as the Route 117 Study Committee vision. So we've been able to pull a lot of things together. Harold was the focal point with the outfit that wrote the grant. He has a color illustration for you to be able to give you an idea as far as the delimiter of the grant, the delimiter of the boundaries of the work area. But in essence, what it comes down to is the grant overall is the grant applications for $1,092,000. And the town's portion to that would be $150,000, of which we would pay the entire $150,000 out of Chapter 90 funds. So we get about $300,000 a year in Chapter 90. So our contribution to this would be about 50% of our Chapter 90 award, which would mean obviously less paving done than normally in a given year, but the return would be the modernized intersection. How would you like to lay out the?
Yes, I have, thanks to Google, I have the intersection as it is now. Take a look at that. And this is Still River, as you see, 117, Bolton Orchards. This is a piece of land the town owns, and I think the Davises own this here. Our right-of-way is 66 feet. We will not go beyond our right-of-way. And the right-of-way was taken by Worcester County Highway. Now, what we have done is to give you an idea of what it will look like. And this is what I thought. Bolton Orchards is over here. We must add, and some areas down here, we're not going to be adding that much because the road narrows. But we've got to add 5 foot on either side for a bike lane and a sidewalk. Those are the requirements. And we're going to do 300 or 400 feet in either direction on 117. In order to get the intersection, we have to do this for complete streets. As Don said, and actually, for our taxpayers, we're not asking for any money. $1,092,000, which is.
And while at the moment, the sidewalk may look like a sidewalk to nowhere, what we've talked about also in previous meetings is we're trying to do a corridor project and do a larger scale project through the TIP grant, and that would be a tie-in to future projects. So it may be a sidewalk that appears to go nowhere now, but the plan would be to do the larger scale project and tie everything in and make the whole area walkable.
This is what they call the complete streets. This is what the program is.
So would there be crosswalks?
There will be
pedestrian
crosswalks here, yes, in the grant. There would be crosswalks here, there would be handicap access for the sidewalks there. You'd have crosswalks here and here.
And is that,
And now, what I don't show you, because I don't know, excuse me, I didn't mean to interrupt you, is I don't know this geometry. What the changes are gonna be in this geometry. And, go ahead.
and how does that affect Bolton Orchards?
I've spoke to Bobby Davis and I've spoke to Joel. They're willing to work with us on it. Our engineers have said in here they will find it mutually beneficial to all parties. What might happen, I don't know, maybe this would be taken out, maybe the entrance would be here and here. They would have to try to increase their parking.
I think for sure, the entrance here will be able to.
Maybe that,
Because
yeah.
that's very close proximity to the lights.
Yeah.
And what is the red again? Oh, bike path.
Yeah.
So will there be, what will the design process be in terms of including input from?
Everything is fast. If we're giving these grants, the design will be put together, and I expect we would have to be ready to go to bid in November. In order to, because we've got to finish this from October to October, that's the only thing.
I think what Jonathan's asking though is what's the opportunity for public input to the design?
There would be definitely public input. Your engineers would have to come and present it. In some parts of this, we have no say.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. I know.
The strings are tied to money, you know?
Yep.
So just the total length of that is what?
They're talking either 300 to 400 feet in either direction.
So
That's what they're talking
800
about.
feet and
That's
then
right,
another
yeah,
one.
tops 800. Whatever the least amount we can do to meet the grant's requirements.
But as you know, we've discussed before, this is a perfect example of a declared need or desired outcome, and then we go out and look for grants to support the desired outcome.
I
And
believe this is what the board asked for previously.
Great.
so
It's great to be tackling one of several dangerous intersections in town, making it more useful and safe for
And sidewalks,
Bolton
even if
residents.
it's 800 feet.
That's
That's a
right.
start.
I see this as a huge enabler for when
Yeah.
the town does pursue
What's
the tip.
wrong?
They
Let's do
will
it.
take this seriously because we
Mhm.
have one intersection and we
That's
do
right.
the next intersection. and-
So what we need tonight is an affirmative vote from the selectmen, which also authorizes Stan to sign on behalf of the board the application.
So I'll make that motion.
We have a question.
I was just going to support this project that Leslie came before Public Way Safety Committee and presented this proposal to us, and we support it. We voted and support it completely. So it's a good deal. It's, you know, it's a dangerous intersection. It can be fixed, and it can be fixed at no expense.
All right.
So, this particular grant, once we receive it, in 3 years from now, we can apply again for somewhere else. Every 3, we can do it, as long as our population is under 7,000. Dawn and I looked at this before, and they didn't have that stipulation.
That's
This is
right.
coming.
So we weren't eligible when the last time we looked at it. So, as well as eligibility changes from town to town, eligibility requirements on the part of a grant award also change over time, and this is a perfect example of it.
And this is the Complete Streets program?
No, this is STRAT. It has to be a complete street, but the grant is called a STRAT grant. Your other big grant is the TIP grant. That you must pay for all engineering. Here, we can put everything in, and they pay it. Timeline is tight, and it can't exceed $1 million. That's how come we've got to take some from Chapter 90. This is it's gonna be a complete, it's very expensive, let's be facts.
So just for scale though, you can see that costs $1 million, so when we start talking about the corridor project, you can start imagining what the expense of that will be. But if you can, if there's no other questions, if you would vote to approve the plan and authorize Stan to sign on behalf of the board, that would be great.
I'll make a motion to approve the application for the strap grant for the Route 110, 117 intersection, and authorize the chairman of the board of selectmen to sign on the selectmen's behalf.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Thank you.
Thanks, Harold.
Thank you.
Great job.
No, just
Former document.
those are like 85.
Back on both sides?
Unless the board has any other questions for
Great
me.
job. Great job. Really good. Thanks a lot.
Well, the town newsletter.
Yeah.
Cheers.
Thank you. Harold, thank you.
I'll be in the
Well, here,
Be careful when you say that. I'm always careful. Again, please.
Well, no, it's all this title stuff. It's an emperor bowl. Thanks. Thank you. All right, next up is Board of Selectmen business. First up on that portion of the agenda is creation of a town senior oil assistance program. Terry Abdelia, come on in.
I'm going to ask Lisa Dion from Council Meeting to join me.
Sure.
So I asked Terry, Alex to be here, but this conversation started when Terry came to me, as she does from time to time.
As I do from time.
And talked about the possibility of putting together a fuel assistance program, a town-supported fuel assistance program. Town-supported in the sense of creating a fund that would be managed by the town, or administered by the town is a better word, that would allow the town to also do fundraising, solicitation of funds, whatever you call it. I actually, quite honestly, had not been aware that a town could do something like that, hence the existence of Friends groups. So I called the town administrator in Harvard, and we're at Harvard because they've been doing this for, what, 10 years, I guess?
Oh, no, I think longer than that even.
Okay, so a minimum of 10 years. And you know, he's a very good town administrator, and they, when they started it, I know who the town accountant was, a very strong town accountant. And I had two conversations with him, because after I talked with him the first time, I came up with some more questions, and this couldn't get my arms around the fact that town could actually do this. But he assured me that they've been doing it successfully for years, and it's totally legal. So the concept being, FOBs or whoever would create criteria for eligibility, or not recommend, we would establish criteria for eligibility which would mirror federal requirements that are already documented, so not reinventing the wheel. And then we would need to create, I would need to create a process where applications would come into the town hall, and then whoever on the staff had been asked or directed, depending on how willing they were when they were asked, we would have a small team put together that would review the applications, and once approved, they would be put on a warrant, and then the town accountant would issue payment.
Yeah, so, hi, Terry. I haven't seen you in a long time. Just as a little bit of history, this fuel assistance program that FOBS has been running for years, started back in 2008, and over the course of those actually 9 heating seasons, we've received over $60,000 in donations and spent or purchased oil or other fuel-related or heating-related items, $54,000, covering on average between 15 and 20 seniors a year with various amounts of oil. So it began because of a huge need back in 2007 and 8. I don't know if you remember what the cost of oil was. We can't even, I wouldn't even say those numbers. You know, I don't want to even think them anymore. But we have, successfully been able to help every senior that needed help. FOBS did this because at the time, the Council on Aging did not have the structure that it now has. Lisa Dion, as you may know, is the outreach worker and has been there for 3 years now, nearly 3 years. And really more rightly, this is something that should be done by the Council on Aging, I believe, by the Council on Aging in the town, because that's what she does. We were doing it for years, as you may or may not know, and this is really maybe a parenthesis to the whole thing. I'm going to be leaving Bolton next year, so I'd like to see that this continues on. It's been very, very valuable to our seniors here in town. Most of them do receive the federal fuel assistance program. That's not meant to pay for every drop of oil that they get during the winter. By giving another 100 gallons of oil to those folks, that helps more. And as you know, the winters can be really harsh and long, and 100 gallons at this point costs maybe $250. That's very valuable to our seniors. So it's a program that I think should go on. It's a program I believe, and Dawn and Lisa, I'll concur that is rightly done. I think it really can very well be done by the town. So if you're interested, I did bring some of these figures. This is talks about the fuel assistance program, the criteria that's set, just to give you an idea for any individual, not just a senior, to qualify for fuel assistance. It's gross income of $34,000 a year or less, and then a bunch of a lot of work that has to be done to prove that. But
No, I think it's a great idea.
And I just want to say one other thing. The Council on Aging voted on this, and they're meeting this month. 100% support for it too.
So what does this mean for the town? What obligations is it, assuming that it doesn't have now?
Well, it'd be probably threefold. The applicant, as right now, Friends of Bolton Seniors does the applications and makes the decisions, and who's being served, who will get fuel assistance. That would be transferred over. Probably Lisa and Dawn. I think the way that Harvard does it is it's a combination of the town administrator and the Council on Aging folk. Lisa has contact with most of these individuals anyway on an ongoing basis, so it flows nicely. An application is filled out. And then once that person is approved, the application is approved, the contact is made directly with the oil company. The senior never gets the money. It's directly from, it would be in this case from the town to the oil company to pay once the delivery was made. So the second part of it would be to make the payment. Like Don was saying, we have to go on a warrant. The oil company would receive payment for the oil that they deliver on proof of delivery. And the other piece would be the fundraising piece, which Harvard does. And right now, I'm sure everybody got a brochure, wherever the camera is, for the Friends of Bolton Seniors. And this year we have included fuel assistance, as we have for the past 8 years, in our brochure for people to donate that way. But if it can be done, that the town can actually raise the money, that makes it easier. Friends of Bolton Seniors, just for you to know, is a group of 6 very dedicated people and do a lot. This is a big job, and I think it needs to be taken over by 3 people, that can make it happen.
I mean, as far as the town administrator and the outreach coordinator working, I'm happy to fit into my schedule to support this. So I have no issue with it at all.
And it's a relatively narrow period of time. I'd say that the initial contact is made in October. Many of the seniors like an earlier delivery to come from this program because Their fuel assistance program, the first delivery is November 1st and it ends in April. So sometimes folks need oil before November 1st. So often it's pretty early. It's 100 gallons and I'm not going to say that there aren't little wrinkles in it sometimes, but it's going to be, I mean, I think it can be done. And the other thing that Lisa and I have been talking about is really reaching out more, to folks in town and maybe even making it, more seniors know about it. And that's being in conjunction with the New England Farm Workers Council, which is actually coming to the senior center in October to take applications from people for their program. So we'd love you to come on board.
So Lisa, you have time?
I do. I actually feel very strongly. I've worked very closely with Friends of Bolton Seniors, as you can imagine, just because they've done so much for our seniors. But I do think this is a valuable program. I do work with a lot of seniors in need in town. I think it's important that we recognize that there are many seniors that oil is not necessarily in their budget. I feel that if I work closely with Terry now, and I'm learning everything from her, that when I take this over next fall, I've had the commitment from board members, COA board members, that they would help, that volunteer, that help with phone calls, paperwork, all of that. So I see it as being a nice joint effort.
Great, so Council on Aging would still be involved? Is that?
Well, council, I'm Friends of Bolton Seniors.
Okay. Would Friends of Bolton Seniors still be involved?
Well, we always are, if we receive money that is designated for fuel assistance, we would give that over. And actually, the idea is that we're sitting with, actually for the first year, we could write you a check for nearly $7,000 that would go into this fund and would more than carry you through the first year. But meanwhile, funds are being raised all the time. So I think from the standpoint of doing what we do, you get word out, and but I think not in the same way that we've been involved before.
I still think it's a good idea.
I think it speaks highly for the town.
Any other questions?
No.
I'll take a motion to approve this.
Make a motion to approve the creation of a town senior oil assistance program.
Second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And before she goes, I would just like to say, Lisa doesn't get in front of the board of selectmen very often, and I just like to tell the board that I think she does a wonderful job in the work that she's doing.
Thanks so much.
Thank
It's a
you,
blessing,
Lisa.
right?
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Terry.
Thanks, Terry.
Don't leave.
Well,
Where are you going?
Don't, I want to sell my house, don't say that.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank
Have a good night.
It is.
All right, next up is a request to appoint Gwen Cook and Rick Bernier to the Economic Development Committee.
There you go,
I'm
Tim.
assuming we advertise these positions.
Yeah, I want to talk
All right, take a motion to accept. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Okay. Next up is a discussion regarding the proposed policy for approving ambulance gift fund expenditures. Margie, why don't you come on down? How are you tonight?
Good, how are you?
Good, thank you. Refresher was memory Margie was in last time. Donna had drafted a proposed policy. And we deferred voting on anything until this time. I made my opinion that we need a policy at this point in time. You have the ability to review what's expended as often as you like, and maybe we can do something more on a quarterly basis. And if something happens, we can always have the option to revisit this. I guess you gentlemen were the ones who had the questions on this, so I'll,
Do the how do the contributions come into the fund? I mean, like, what's written on the check?
It's typically Bolton Voluntary Ambulance Squad or Bolton Ambulance Squad. And we receive them at the station. We note it. We bring them over to the town hall. They log it and deposit it.
And I probably said this to you the last time, so please forgive me, but how do you know what the intent of the person is that's making the contribution?
So if they have a specific intent, they typically write it in the letter. They come in thank you notes and, just so if we get a letter with it or there's a notation in it, then we honor that request. More often than not, there's not a specific directive to do with the money. But so we do honor the request if one is made.
So, I think this is a good policy myself. We had, I think you came in, but Friends of Person Park came in. For what it's worth, I think you guys would do great with a 501c3. I believe her testimony, Martha's testimony was that this is in less than a year, they're already up and running with a 501c3 with a nonprofit corporation. I think you guys would do great. You're an essential service. People are really appreciative. What makes me uncomfortable about the money coming in there is that it's putting the town in the position of being the Attorney General, the Regulated Industries Division, and I don't think it's appropriate. And I think you would do fantastic, much better than you're doing now, unless I'm missing something, with your own entity. You'd have your own board, wouldn't matter what I said or anyone on the board said or in the town, and you could fundraise to your heart's content. And over time, I think probably the checks would be coming to the, Friends of the Ambulance or committee or whatever you.
So we don't fundraise, just to be very clear.
No, and you can't because it's for the town.
Right.
But that would free you up of that. You'd have to deal with the AG. I've been dealing with nonprofits for a long time. It is a little bit of work, but once you get it up and going, I don't feel like it's a lot. And I have a lot of experience with it. I haven't done an application in a long time, but my understanding is for a 501c3 is dramatically simpler. And I think that's the way to go. But if you don't decide not to, for whatever reason, I think this is a good policy and I think we should adopt it.
So did you get, I had sent a copy of an email that was sent out in 2005.
I forwarded it on to the board this morning before I left for Boston.
It just kind of fills in the history of what we've been running under.
You have a copy of it?
I do not.
When did you have?
I'm a bit confused, considering that we just voted to approve starting a town account for fundraising for oil to provide to senior citizens, and there was no discussion about a 501c3 for that. And Margie's been doing basically the same thing now for quite some time, and
It doesn't need a 501c3, it's just gonna keep it as is. She doesn't need it.
but that's just the point, so I don't know why you're advocating a 501c3 because they don't do fundraising.
Sure they do. Oh, they could.
Yeah.
They don't now, but they could.
But she's not asking to do fundraising.
Yeah, I think he has one, I don't know if Dan wanted one.
No. So it's kind of contradictory that, we just approved one where you're not requiring this, and we have an existing one where you either want a policy, which is a policy that you didn't ask the other group to do, or do a 501c3, so it's very contradictory, because I don't quite understand.
I disagree.
Well, you can disagree all you want, but, it is what it is. You're the one that just talked about it, and you can roll the tape back and see it, so.
I agree. I think this is a good policy.
what are you attempting to fix? If you want something different, then you're attempting to try to fix something, and you really need to articulate what that is. A policy for the sake of a policy is not good practice, so what is the problem that you're trying to solve?
I don't think donations to the town, which is what this is, I have no experience with all these letters or checks or whatever it is that comes in. But again, I'll say it again, I think it's a very ambiguous donation, unless they're saying expressly, here's $100, thank you for your services, which is probably the genesis of all the donations. Here's buy a round of beers for the staff. I'm just saying, or buy new tires for the ambulance or whatever it is. They would have to carry out the dictate of the donor. If the donor is not being clear, or for no reason, or for any reason, then what guides those monies? We need a policy. Again, my feeling is it's very inappropriate for the town to be managing you're essentially managing a charity or a nonprofit. That's not what we do. That's what the AG does. But if there's, I don't think the money should be here. I think that those donations, you should create a 501c3 and a nonprofit, do a mailing, and start building up that goodwill. I think before long, you'd be very happy you did it. But if you want to keep it here, which I understand too, you may want to, I just think there needs to be a policy of how it's spent. Because it's really, if there's not a clear intent, then it should just go into the town's coffers.
No, I'm afraid no, you can't do that either. I'm sorry.
Right, so the policy is to clarify what these monies are and how they're spent.
No.
I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt, but just a point, if the board does go on to vote the policy, I just should note that the effective date would change to September 22nd. That would be the only edit, because that was written for the last meeting. So I would just make that change.
So I'm going to be very blunt. It feels like you're trying to hold us hostage. You want us to be a 501c3. So you're changing the policy so that we can't use it in the manner that we used to. And it feels like that's what I'm not at all against a policy. That's fine. And we will uphold a policy if one's created. My beef is that we've always used it for the appreciation dinner, and that's being taken away. And it feels like it's a punishment. I could be wrong, but that's what it feels like to me.
Well, I will even go further. What this is you're putting a gun to her head that says, if you want to keep it the same way, you have to adopt this policy, or create a 501c3, and then you can do whatever you want with it. It's kind of hypocritical. You want oversight if it's maintained as a town account, but go ahead and buy a Mustang. If it's a 501c3, because we won't have any oversight of it. We will have zero oversight.
But the Attorney General will, which is where it belongs.
And we are discussing taking your recommendation.
I'm not trying to hold a gun to your head or make you do whatever you don't want to do. If the funds are in the town, the only other reason, for the most part, that people are giving money to the town and cutting a check is to pay their taxes. And that goes to pay the town's bills, and that's highly regulated. This isn't. It makes me uncomfortable. I think, I don't care whether you start up a 501c3 or not. I'm just saying, having a lot of experience with them, I think you do great. I'm trying to give you positive advice, good advice. And I do, because people are very sympathetic to what you do. You do an essential service. You're helping people out in the worst moments of their lives. I think you're going to do fine, and you won't have to deal with this hassle. You can have your dinners or whatever it is. I think it would be better. It's cleaner. There's, you would have to deal with the AG, which is not a lot. And I just think it's better for the town, it's better for you guys, in my opinion. I'm just one vote, but that's how I feel.
Well, then why didn't you ask Terry to form a 501c for the oil donations? Why is that different?
My understanding is that there's some different mechanism that Don talked about with the town, with the account.
Well, FOBS exists now and does this. What they're looking to do is to take away the responsibility for providing, for the administration of the fuel. So what would happen, actually the process would be fairly similar. I mean, with the ambulance receives gift donations and they get deposited with the town. With the fuel assistance, Terry said they've got about $7,000 now that they would turn over to the town for seed money to get us through this winter. The applications would come into the town and Lisa and I would review the applications and then authorize Menachka, or whoever the town account is, to write the check. The policy that we'll be working from is basically the federal policy that she provided in the pamphlet there. So FOBS effectively, the only involvement FOBS will have, the way I understand it, is if they receive a donation, then they will pass it on to the town.
And it's gonna be solely used for fuel assistance.
Solely used for fuel assistance under the guidelines, not under the guidelines, under the criteria established in that, but at the federal level, we'll be using the same criteria.
Ken?
I wanted to ask a question about this, partly based on the discussion last week. I didn't read I hadn't ever seen the policy last week, but what I heard described was objection to using funds for a dinner. Now, is that what the exclusion is? Because what I just read didn't say that it excluded a dinner. It said it excluded liquor. And so, are those one and the same, Margie?
Entertainment.
It says under no circumstances are the funds to be used for entertainment purposes.
Oh, entertainment, okay, I didn't.
That's,
all right.
that's
Then
the new, that's the.
Then I guess I did not see what it was, okay. I
So-
guess
so
I
that's
don't
an
see,
addition, yeah.
all right, I didn't understand. I don't see why the entertainment part of it is a problem.
Yeah, it's one dinner, it's not like we're going out monthly or, only a dinner a week, it's one dinner. It's open to the whole squad and all of it. Yeah,
That's crazy.
yeah.
Open to the whole squad, that's how many people?
The ambulance squad, so we have about 20 to, we usually have about 20 to 30 on our roster, and then we invite the cadets. So it's a pretty big dinner, but it's one time a year. It goes a long way.
You know, I would be fine with it if the check comes in and it is a letter and it's for your dinner fund or whatever, I'd be fine with that too, as long as the intent of the person donating the money is carried out. That's my concern. So we could change this and say, if the donation says for the use of the squad or, for the use of your annual dinner, I'd be fine with that.
So the other thing that we get donations in memory of people quite frequently. So they're not earmarking for anything. They just come in and they say, in memory of.
Right.
So, and one thing we have always been very careful to not use donation money for operational expenses. So that's, my understanding is we cannot use it for, something that would otherwise be budgeted.
Right,
So-
because donations are considered to be over and above the operating budget.
Right.
So it's not that it can't be used for an expense within the department, it's not a regularly budgeted expense.
So like I think in here it said something about, an extenuated incident where we would purchase food. We wouldn't be able to do that, that's an operational expense.
What about gas?
So this would have the extended emergency situations, an unusually long day of training, et cetera, you wouldn't be able to,
Well, we wouldn't be able to anyways, because the bottom line says that I have to have writing, I have to have permission in writing for 7 days in advance, so I wouldn't be able to use it for that anyways.
okay.
But that's considered an operational expense, and quite often that's referring to weather emergencies, which oftentimes are reimbursed by the state or the government. So we wouldn't want that, because it's actually coming back into the town. For a portion, but it's not dollar for dollar, but a portion of it is.
I mean, I'd be open to, taking out the entertainment purposes, but keeping in the procedure for, requests to the town administrator.
I would agree with that. I would be open to that.
It's fine, that's fine with me.
So strike the sentence that starts with under no circumstances, is that what you're saying?
But just that there's more planning involved, some, that it's just not, you're checking in, you have a plan, done, and use it.
So I just want to ask again, the checks that are coming in, they come in with letters or cards? And what are typical?
So it's very rare that they earmark something specific. But a couple years ago, we had a rather large donation, and large donations have to go by you guys anyways. So we always say, we received this large donation, can we accept it? So I would come and present that to you. But in that donation, it earmarked something very specific, and we honored that. Every now and then we get things like, treat the squad to something nice, or, it's not very specific, it's,
So how much do you take in on an average year?
It depends, not a lot, we probably definitely $5,000. Depending, I mean, every now and then, we bring in more, but it's not typically, again, we don't advertise, we don't,
And how much is the cost of this is at the one at the International, right?
This is the one at the International. We usually spend just under $3,000 on it. The International's rates are actually very reasonable, and the reason we do it at the International is because we want to keep our people in town. If I take everybody out of town, you don't have an ambulance, and you only have half a fire department. So we actually designate a crew. The ambulance goes up to the restaurant with us, and we have the dinner. We've gone out of town before, it's less successful. It's a relatively large group, so we want to sit in the same room. So, going to Neshoba or to Fotini's is, while we've done it before, it hasn't been the best. And actually, IGC's their rates are pretty reasonable. We went to Sterling one year, and I think it was like maybe $2 or $3 cheaper per person. So it's.
So basically, unless it's expressly earmarked for something else, it would go towards the pool of money to pay for the international event.
Correct. And we had quite a sum built up. We don't anymore. But so we've done things like purchase equipment out of it, equipment that we wouldn't necessarily go to the town for, that kind of thing.
We bought the gator.
We bought the gator, right? So that's town owned now, and it's nobody had to pay taxes for that.
I'm fine with the policy change, as with the change. Is that good?
Yeah, it does.
So just to clarify, we would be striking the sentence that starts under no circumstances, and we'd be changing September 8th to September 22nd.
Sounds good.
Yeah, and I would just remove the extended duration.
Good point.
Which part?
The one where it says to purchase food for extended duration, because it's usually like on the fly.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be able to do that by the policy anyways.
Okay.
we usually just put that in purchases of service. And like I said, more often than not, it's a blizzard and we're reimbursed, or we're applying for reimbursement.
I'll strike that phrase and put et cetera in after sharing. So it's just not limiting to those two things.
Thank you.
So I'll make a motion that we adopt the policy and procedures for expenditures from the Bolton Ambulance gift account as amended by Mr. Wells.
Second.
Before I ask for a vote here, this memo is dated August 23rd, 2005, in terms of what the mechanism was. So this has been in effect for 11 years, and it hasn't been a problem, and neither of my colleagues have described what they're trying to fix. So all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those against, say nay. Nay. All right, thank you, Margie.
Thank you very much for all you do.
Thanks, Margie.
Yeah.
Good night.
Good night.
All right, next up is discussion of location of future Board of Selectmen meetings. Whoever brought this up, want to explain it?
Well, actually, this was brought up in the summer, that the suggestion was that we permanently locate over here. The original idea was because the audio was so bad, the audio was so bad in the selectmen's meeting room while the air conditioner was running that we had major issues. So we came over here and it was suggested that we not address the permanent location until after we got through what would be considered the air conditioning season. It's probably safe to say that we're beyond that. So then it's just a matter of whether or not the board wishes to continue to meet over here, or if we were to return to the selectmen's meeting room in the town hall.
Well, we've always, the town hall is the selectmen's meeting room over there, and the reason we come over here in the summer is because of the air conditioning. And we do come here when we're anticipating a large gathering, but we have a meeting room, and I fail to understand why it is we need to change.
I'll just say my own piece. I like this room much better. It's lighter, bigger, more comfortable. I like it personally better. I'm for staying here.
Yeah, I've noticed that the space, it allows people to filter in and filter out. The seats, over the summer have largely, majority have been filled. So for me, it is a more comfortable space, I think, for us, and I think also for participants in the audience.
Well, I think you're kind of forgetting the fact that these two individuals, have to schlep over from town hall, and particularly Linda, who has to bring not only her laptop, but the meeting materials, the warrant to be signed. I think, you're making it an inconvenience for town employees because you feel more comfortable here. I have no objection to coming here when it's necessary to house a large crowd, but we have a room called the Selectmen's Meeting Room in the other building, and I think we should be mindful of the undue burden we're putting on our town employees, especially Linda. So I think where we normally meet is perfectly fine. As I said, in the summertime when it's hot, this is great, and if we know we're gonna have an agenda item with a large crowd, we've always come over here, or at the library, wherever it might be, the house more individual. So I really don't see any particular need to move. So if someone wants to make a motion to do something, go right ahead.
I'd like to make a motion to continue to use the Lois Alex meeting room for Board of Selectmen meetings for the foreseeable future.
I'll second that.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those in disapprove, say nay. Nay. Linda, any minutes?
No,
Okay. Minutes. I don't believe we have anything else to discuss. If not, then do we have meeting executive session?
We do, yes.
So we will be moving into executive session pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A3, to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining for fire union. As the chair finds that open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the board's bargaining position, and we will not reconvene into open session. Good night.